2004, some fun new trails were added to the network. Flintstone's playground and around the mountain thread their way along the steep western side of the hill, above Tamantoon. Thunder Valley was added to the northern end, and Plan C was a new access trail to replace the loss of Pat's Egress. Rubber tappers were also illegally returning to the hill, making use of the abandoned plantation now that the price of latex was increasing. Considerable new growth was cut, and several old trails were cleared by the rubber tappers in order to make their job easier. Huge amounts of plastic rubbish were generated by the new method of gathering rubber in plastic bags, and unfortunately this continues to today. Over the next 3 years, there was massive increase in trail activity and a rapidly growing community of bikers. Apollo, Rubbish, Rush Hour, Shriners Convention, TNT, Dirty Deeds, Pure Quill, Lower Short, Iniulu Damansara, and Barracuda were all added to the trail network. With more than 30 kilometers of trails and substantially more traffic than in years past, the workload of trail maintenance had become too much for just one person to handle. Trail maintenance is different from the cutting of a new trail, and is typically about minimizing or repairing the damage caused by erosion from both water runoff and brake-happy mountain bikers. Malaysia gets a lot of rainfall, on average 200 days per year, and it's not uncommon for a single storm to dump 8 to 10 centimeters of rain in just a few hours. Digging water bars is essential to manage this. Some of the time, however, trail maintenance is just to put in place something fun to ride and make the trail flow. I started an informal Adopt a Trail program to involve more of the mountain biking community and to take some of the load off me. Organized via the Whakaui Tribe website and forum, the idea was for individuals or groups to take on the maintenance of a trail of their choice. In addition to this, I had earlier initiated the Kiara TNT Fund to defray maintenance costs. In this case, TNT means tools and timber. So far it's worked very well. The fund has no trouble paying for the bridges, the chainsaw, cold drinks for work parties, pretty much whatever modest needs I dream up. The trails of Kiara have a total of 17 bridges, many of which have been funded by these donations, and there have been numerous jumps and other constructions over the years. I've ridden the trails in Whistler and on Vancouver's North Shore a few times, and every time I'm blown away with what the trail builders have created there. So many things they built are obviously a labor of love, far beyond what's necessary to simply ride. Every time I come back inspired to try my hand at similar things for Kiara. It's all about having an eye for the possibilities of creating something special out of what nature gives you to work with. A forest is in a constant state of flux, more than I ever realized. Maybe even more so in Malaysia, where large volumes of rain are coupled with high winds on the leading edge of the storms. Often trees are uprooted or blown down, providing fresh deadfall that invites building something. Sometimes as simple and necessary as a bridge, sometimes something a bit more playful like a flyover or a teeter-totter. Or a skinny. A damn long skinny, 30 feet long in this case, 1 foot wide. A single tree had fallen over, perfectly placed to route the trail down the length of it. It took a couple of days to build and lasted a couple of years, which is about all one can expect out of natural deadfall here. Sometimes things are eaten away within a few months, so the constructions are a bit transient, but good fun while they last. One of the most enduring trail features has been the small bridge on Snakes and Ladders. Spanning a small gully, an old railway sleeper was put in place in 2001 by Joe and some friends. The sleeper was suitably skinny to be a challenge to ride, especially as you approach it from a tight corner. Over many years, the gully eroded and widened to the extent that the sleeper wasn't long enough, and the bridge fell. In November 2011, I constructed an 8-foot-long replacement bridge from Chengao, a local hardwood which is highly resistant to rot and fungus. With some help from Stan, Vic, Shiny and Karen, we lugged the timber into location first before assembling on site. With the old railway sleeper still being solid and intact, we used it as a supporting foundation on one bank of the gully. Hopefully the new bridge will last nearly as long as the original. Some of the freeriders thought our playground needed a wall ride and asked me for help, as if I was the font of all knowledge. Like they say, in the kingdom of the blind, a one-eyed man can be king. But they scored the wood, we came up with something between us that did the job. Next time I'll do a better job on the angles. It was a bit unforgiving if you didn't get the line just right. One of the spin-offs of the wall ride was a huge teeter-totter. The guys bought way too much lumber for the wall ride and lost interest in building anything else, and left the extra to rot. It's my nature to be frugal, and this didn't sit well with me at all. So the objective became building something that used as much lumber as possible to keep it from going to waste. The deck was over 4 meters long and took 6 people to lift. It was so heavy and had so much inertia that when I rode it for the first time, I started to wonder if it would ever tip.
Oh, it just wouldn't go down.
When it finally did, all that mass went down like a bomb dropping, delivering a colossal smash when it hit the ground. But it was solid enough that it lasted a couple of years and succumbed to rot before it shook itself apart. Good Malaysian hardwood. Good Canadian screws. Dave Martin came back from riding in Scotland totally agog at the trails there. 7 stains, I think. Berms, he said. We need berms. Alright, berms then. So we scouted around for a place where we could build a trail that could have berms, without having to move so much earth that heavy equipment would be required. We thought the ideal location would be a dry river valley just below the 4-way junction. A series of 6 berms as the trail snaked down the steep and narrow valley. The added bonus of a huge dead tree that we could lead the trail along to add a little extra. And then the closer, a pair of gap jumps. It's a bit ironic that I should have been the one to add the gaps, as I'm not really a fan. But I wanted to build something out of rock and I couldn't think of anything else to create. When it was all done, it took a minute to do the whole series, but it was quite a rush, so it became known as Rush Hour. Enterprising groups of riders had built structures elsewhere on the hill too. A series of wooden skinnies were built halfway down the Flintstones Trail, in a quiet area of the woods. They nicely took advantage of the terrain to put some high sections in place, as well as a couple of big drops for the free riders.
Fucking hell!
Oh!
The eastern side of Kiara has had a troubled history over the past few years with encroaching development. Large areas of forest have been lost to the expanding suburbs of Mount Kiara and Sri Hartamas. The entrance trail called Pat's Egress was lost to housing development in 2004. Plan C was the replacement, starting behind the school at the edge of Sri Hartamas. In turn, this track was partly destroyed in 2007 and again in 2008 with the cutting of the horse trails by DBKL. This widened the trail into double track, felling many trees in the process. A new trail named Plan C Plus was created, mostly a bench-cut single track threading along the contours between rows of rubber trees. From where Plan C Plus ends, the Boulder and Barracuda trails led west, across into the main area of the hill. However, in 2008, the Kiara View housing estate went through another phase of expansion. Both trails were covered under a man-made landslide of mud and rock formed by bulldozers trying to flatten the hill for construction access. This of course severed the 2 main arteries for mountain bikers to access the rest of the hill from the Hartamas side. After the initial landslide had stabilised, Pat attempted to cut a new path across to rejoin Barracuda. 2 ladder sections built from deadfall bridged the main flow of water down the hill, with extensive drainage channels to try and focus water runoff away from the track. Despite this, the soil remained soft and ultimately mobile, with further landslides destroying the path after only 6 months. The solution to this setback was to take a wide route around the slide zone at the base of the hill. Halfway down the lesser used track Ini Ulu Damansara, Pat mapped out a route for a new trail to traverse along a narrow rubber terrace and cross the river valley before climbing back up towards the Barracuda Trail, and was helped in the construction by the SMS and ThunderClan riding groups. Thanks to the desolate landscape in the river valley, the trail was named Wasteland. To dig the track, there were a number of challenges: the steep approaches in and out of the valley crossing, and a steep climb back up to join the Barracuda Trail, necessitating 5 switchback turns. To bridge the river was another issue, with the massive amount of water that would flow down from the slide zone above. Lumber from deadfall was used for the bridge, in 2 spans with rocks in the middle. The bridge was purposely built as heavy as possible with rock armour to try and make the crossing robust against the flow. With help from the SMS riders, we lifted the logs into place and completed the rock approach wall. Further finishing touches were applied to complete the bridges. Wasteland was open to use in January of 2009. After only 3 months, a large rainstorm brought down one of the spans of the bridge, shifting a 600-pound log several feet down the river. After a rebuild of the bridge and diversion of the river away from the foundation, the log spans lasted a further 15 months before eventually succumbing to rot. The TNT fund stummed up the required amount to replace the log spans with finished hardwood, installed in June of 2010. To this day, the slide zone remains impassable. Meanwhile, at the northern end of the hill, development of Mont Kiara continues to edge into the forest, with slope cutting getting closer and closer to the Panchala Trail. In one place, this has left the trail nothing but a ledge above a large drop.
Look down.
Going back to the cutting of the horse trails in 2008, despite felling of trees and strenuous denials of responsibility, there was a positive outcome from all the mess. This was the formation of TRAKS, the Trail Association of Kuala Lumpur and Selangor, an association of trail users to advocate for trail access, with Bukit Kiara as the immediate priority. Other initiatives were later implemented, the Hutan Kita replanting project and the eventual gazetting of part of the hill for preservation under the stewardship of the National Landscape Department. While the gazetting has made progress toward preservation of the forest, a new problem has arisen: the plan to erect a fence around the park boundaries. 10 feet high, stainless steel. The boundary fence crosses several trails, some of which will get gated access, while the others will have to be rerouted, such as Magic Carpet. In January of 2012, a TRAKS Trail Day was called for, and 30-plus volunteers helped to create a 200-meter section of new trail.
Look at this, look at all these people. This is great, isn't it? This is what it's all about. Because Kiara is done by us, for us. And when people like this come out, it makes me feel good because it knows there's more people than me who care about this.
The steep slope necessitated some deep bench cuts into the hard soil to lessen the gradient and to allow the trail to be ridden in both directions. And so, cutting short a long story, we come to the present day. As popular as ever, Buka Kiara continues to be a focal point for huge numbers of riders. And all the while, the trails here will continue to evolve. For now, they remain as exciting, challenging, inspiring, and occasionally intimidating as ever. I hope they remain that way, but for now I suggest you ride them as long as you can.